Exide 29. Yeah, this was the big expository episode we were all expecting from this. Confirmation. Parad is Emu's bugster. No, there isn't another bugster hosting him. No, he's just not the same type of bugster that I was expositing before. He just is Emu's bugster. The one extracted by what's-his-name that appeared in the movie that they harvested all the other resultant bugsters from throughout the series for the monsters. Parad is the first bugster. Parad is the leader of the bugsters, and he's obsessed with Emu because his personality was born from Emu's wish for someone to play with, except, of course, through sociopathy and a existence born from an alien. Essentially an alien, he doesn't understand human values, and thus why the whole Commoner Chronicle game was born. He's all put it on Emu. This still does not mediate my issue with Mighty Brothers XX. Yes, in the episode, Parad uses that Gasha to split him and Emu in two so they can fight on even terms as level 20s, essentially level 20s, in either of their bodies as part of his big plan, but my underlying issue of it is the Mighty Brothers have fought Parad. If the second personality we've seen manifested from Mighty Brothers, which one of them acts like normal Emu, one of them acts like Bugster-possessed Emu, well, the Bugster-possessed Emu doesn't act like Parad does, pretty much at all. With Emu with his Bugster in control acts differently from Parad, even though they have the same obsession with gaming. Emu's actor portrays the Bugster self differently than Parad's actor presents Parad, even with the underlying game obsession. So that's been my sticking point, as then it feels like a continuity snarl for that to be the big reveal. If that Emu's entire second personality was just Parad. Now, if what was manifesting from Emu when he was using that, or his more forceful dominant personality was just created from the absence of Parad after he left, or was himself being influenced by the remnants of the Bugster virus in him since he's patient zero, that would mediate that, but that's not what they've been saying so far, so I still feel there's some lingering dialogue about that needs to be addressed, or part of the expansion of Emu as a character to come to terms with these two halves of himself, to pretty much just force Parad out of him permanently and deal with his own gamer infection while still being patient zero and all that. So yeah, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back with me on that. It feels like pretty much the same condition, except more of this exposition's out of the way. How they deliver the exposition, however, is pretty well executed, as they do a bunch of tying flashbacks to Parad's previous actions, where he would side with Emu over Dan, or one of the other characters in which he would do something. Like, they cite the Bergermon incident with Kuroto's callousness towards Bergermon, and then Parad, and then since that incident began Parad's split from Kuroto with regards to their motivations, it explains why that was. It shows how Emu has also been influencing Parad through their mutual link when Emu's emotions have been at their highest. It bleeds through the link and forces Parad to doing something, and I'm presuming part of why he keeps wanting to more and more fight Emu is Parad doesn't want that connection anymore. He wants to be his own person, completely separate from Emu, so he wants to dominate Emu fully on the same level to prove himself superior, and that is when he will kill Emu and fully take himself, because from previous exposition that Parad has given, he believes fully in fair play, in fully earning their true existence. Not in the same parasitic way that the other Bugsters have, well, I shouldn't say the other Bugsters, pretty much just Graphite has done that. have dominated and taken over to fully manifest. Okay, there's Renama, it's like the Loverka Bugster too. We haven't gotten how he got fully manifested either, sorry. But yeah, Parad seems to be the only one who's actively playing with Emu to effectively earn this manifestation of full existence. And he's been intentionally preventing Emu from going over the critical line in his infection to result in his own death. Parad's been the only reason that hasn't happened so far, and now that Parad's gotten fed up with Emu, he's completely superseding him and not letting that he's not letting how should I phrase this? He's not given that. He's no longer permitting Emu to have that seemingly immunity to his own bugster infection. A couple things result from this. Most significantly, Parad possessing Emu, which was seen last episode, and him keeping Emu on a leash so as to force him into the confrontation, essentially taunting him with all the things that have resulted from what was done to him. The Commoner Chronicle nonsense, all the dead victims, yeah, pretty much everything. And it's like, he's trying to break him so that he'll go all out, but he's only more defeating himself in what he really wants, to just the all-out throwdown with Emu for that, for his ultimate prize. On the Team Exide perspective of this, it confirms something that Hero had been beginning to suspect for a little bit, and Nico actually is the most interesting reaction of this, as all this time the one that she thinks humiliated her was Emu, but now they're realizing that on the day before he had the Bugster harvested, that was likely Proto-Parad in the Gamer Genius M identity that, again, we've previously been connecting to that split personality. But admittedly, a more malicious Bugster like Parad makes more sense for that incident, with how Emu originally described that as completely wrecking his body when he was taken over by the impulse to game, to relieve his stress and that. So Nico is pretty much coming to terms with her feelings for Emu, and pretty much just switching her target to Parad for resolving her whole humiliation thing. She's getting character development out of it. There seems to finally be a point for her to be in the show after her being around for 10, 12, 13 episodes, with her doing pretty much nothing for the story. At least there's something with her finally. Poppy, aka Asuna, I think is starting to be given the most with this, as she's being driven to repay the kindness showed to her by Emu last episode, and of course over the course of the series, by not caring if she's a Bugster as long as she's a good person. And now that she has access to the root memories of the person she unintentionally, when she manifested, killed, she's finding that the memories show her a younger Kuroto Dan. Now, my supposition is either A, an older sister, or B, his mother. I want to say mother because, as far as memory serves, they have not been in the picture, and they would figure to be a close enough person to have these kind of details, and also close enough to the whole Bugster mess to be infected early enough for Asuna to manifest herself, and also the closeness to remember the horror and possibly drive her to be the fake nurse, the one assisting them in all the CR mess. So she starts to use those memories and uses it to retrieve a prototype gamer driver and a prototype Mighty Action X, which is specifically programmed for dealing with infections as a absolute last backup. But with how it's hidden, it's in Kuroto's home away from home lab, where you saw him and Parad stashed out after they left Genom Corporation. So I don't know if it's because they just had that set, but it seems odd for it to be there in that other location instead of hidden inside Genom Corporation itself. Admittedly, since the Bugsters are all using Genom Corporation as a hideout now, it would be kind of difficult to actually get it from that location, but it seems odd it was placed there. Oh, and as Aldo showed in the gift sets, the entire framing of Asuna finding this extra driver and Gashot, the lighting, the glow of the chest, it all invokes the Legend of Zelda opening a chest scene. Like, you could sub in the musical scoring for that, and it would fit pretty much perfectly for that. So, from previews, Asuna is going to be changing into Genom level 0 in the next episode, for possibly dealing with Parad and everything else with him, because he has gone Paradox level 99 as a result of his fight with Emu. How the fight happens is, of course, with the Mighty Brothers. I mentioned that earlier, but Parad gives as a handicap to Emu the Key Slasher and the Maximum Mighty X Gashot, but of course, with his eventual plan being to let Emu reprogram him so that he's... I actually don't know what the reprogramming was intended to do in this instance, because I presume there's supposed to be some type of action that takes place. With the previous reprogrammings we've seen of him, when you used it on Genom, it restored his health gauge, so Genom no longer had his immortality form. When he used it on Poppy, he restored the memory block, removed all the memory blocks that had been inserted into her. When he used it on Motors, it removed his vehicle. So, what exactly did Emu do to Parad now that actually resulted in him being able to use a gamer driver to level up to level 99 by inserting his own personal Gashot into it? I don't know. And that's kind of a bit of sticking exposition for this, as I doubt what Emu intended to do in that instance with it was what Parad wanted him to. That seemed like a pretty big gamble for him to let himself be shot with the reprogramming beam just to get human DNA so he could use a gamer driver legitimately. Admittedly, that exposition explains why he had to use the side holster for his Gear Gashot duel up to this point, as he couldn't actually use a driver to trigger his Gashots. And also this also plays a bit into very early in the series where he equipped Kuroto's previous gamer driver before he got the Buggle driver. This was around episode 8, episode 7 if memory serves, where he put it on in the aftermath of an explosion to fake out the writers about Kuroto's identity, which now, come to think of it, since he is now using Genom's gamer driver to get to Paradox level 99, that's some interesting foreshadowing. Very interesting foreshadowing. Paradox level 99 himself. This is arguably the best design we've had yet. I want to see how Muteki Gamer and Kronos play in live action, but goddamn is this a really damn serviceable suit with how it amalgamates Parad's two forms and their specialties excellently, because he can still do the power-up manipulation as he could in Perfect Puzzle, while still having all the physical force of Knockout Fighter. Admittedly, it's all put into his axe gun, which in the show is ridiculously powerful, as it can amplify the strength of its attacks by a multiplier using the B button and switching between the two uses. So my concern with Parad going level 99 before was I was thinking he would lose the ability for the power-up manipulation, as Perfect Puzzle would just realign itself to amplify Knockout Fighter's power, but that's not been so. He can still cheat the system by taking all the power-ups away from the other riders, and that is especially destructive since, well, but up to this point, Brave has been using mainly level 5, but using those power-ups to put himself on the level of level 20, 30, 50. I don't think we've seen a bugster except for Parad be at level 50 thus far. So, yeah, his little cheat for that isn't going to work still when facing Parad. It hasn't worked previously against Parad because he just gets rid of them all when he's in the groove, but still, it's pretty much the only evening factor that the writers had, and it's now out of their hands. And I gotta say, for a show that kind of has an issue with curb stomp battles with the power level differences, again, with exception to the later showcased Dragon Knight Hunter duels, this was one of the more justified ones. Not just because of the level dynamic, or even the power-up debut, but it's because Parad is fully aware of the ability sets of the other riders due to how long he's been actively fighting them, and the previous knowledge of how Parad at level 50 was completely previously on par with, albeit admittedly a bit, just slightly possibly outclassed by the other level 50 riders, with how it was previously showcased, how even with power-ups augmenting Perfect Puzzle form, he only ended up in a draw with Snipe level 50. So it feels deserved from both Parad, not just from the angle of Parad getting this power-up, but the experience he's had in conflict with the other riders. It's like, he got this new power-up, and it outclasses everything before, but we knew where he stood before, so that makes it all the better. It's like, if you keep adding power-ups one on the other, they start to become meaningless, but this one fits due to how long Parad's been acting at level 50. Yes. And as much as we're getting exposition for this one, and new reveals and new powers, and Parad's own sense of mind and planning and his motivations coming to the foreground, it kind of feels like, not that nothing happened, but it kind of feels like it started where it began, as Emu is still Parad's prisoner, as Parad tries to get this absolute, unquestionable duel with Emu done with, presumably to finally become complete. So that's just continuing next time, where we're also getting Ganem level 0, and presumably the lead into Muteki's reveal. We've not seen any previews of that costume showing up anywhere. We've had preview images of Kronos in battle. We've seen a bit of detailing about Brave level 100 with Tattle Legacy, but we've not seen much of Muteki yet. So my question now is whether it's being delayed until, like, episode 36, because they might have had issues getting the suit done, which they don't seem to be having much of an issue with that this year, unlike Ghost last year. Or they're just hiding the reveal to make it all the more special, since if you follow the magazine and preview release information, you can get spoiled a bit on upcoming details. So yeah, lots of confirmation of things that were beginning to be suspected, and pretty good callbacks to everything, but I'm still sticking on the whole explanation of Mighty Brothers needing a bit more work. Maybe we'll get more of that with how he could even manipulate that before. Again, that's pretty much it. That's all I got, so I will see you all next time.